Michael Jackson, this is how long ago this was, it had a Michael Jackson song commercial. And I was singing along and my parents grounded me for like 6 months. So, and then when I left home, you know, I'd always had music in my head. And when I left home, I started making albums. So I made about 10 albums over the years, and then I never released anything. Like I never put anything. I would make cassette tapes and give it to my friends of mine. And then I did a show with Jonah, and I was going in the hospital to get chemotherapy like the next week. So I was, you know, it was kind of like a bucket thing. And then Jonah started covering my song, and then he got signed to a record label. So then once I got better, I had kind of all this momentum to, you know, keep doing music after that.
My history of the band is that Hobby poached me from other bands.
Well, yeah, I poached. Yeah. So we released an album 4 months ago, and it's called Every Eye is a Universe. And it's been played 200,000 times now, which is really overwhelming, by people we don't know from around the world, which is kind of neat. We're getting emails. I got an email from this guy in Berkeley, and it was like, "Oh, I just had a breakup with my girlfriend, and your album helped me get through it." It's kind of been nice to resonate with people halfway around the world that we will never meet and who don't know who we are.
But it doesn't say that the album also caused the breakup.
Yeah, I hope not. And even when I far across borders, it was always I've been floating, I think on the ocean, out in the Rian's PhD.
Yeah, so I'm a computer scientist.
And I'm an MD, and I do medical physics. But I was a physics major, and I consider myself, and I still do research, but I do like medical physics research. But I consider myself a science enthusiast more than an actual scientist. So I like to when I read a paper that's really interesting or I hear a lecture that's really cool, I try to write a song about it.
You're a very interesting genre of science fanboy.
Yes, yeah. The wind and the echo is kind of, in a way, a metaphor for the band, really, because I think it's really interesting to think of the ship of Theseus paradox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ship of Theseus, where all the molecules that make up my body, all the atoms, are different from year to year, and by about 7 to 10 years, every atom that is in my body is from something else and from somewhere else, and they've all been replaced. And even physically, I feel like we're four-dimensional waves traveling through space and time as individuals, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're constantly replenishing our atoms and changing our molecules up. And so the wind and the echo is kind of about that. It's about if I am not my physical body, then what am I? What is my identity? Because if the physical body changes, then how do I base my definition of myself on that? And so I think that's sort of an interesting way to think about we define ourselves in these ways that are very physical, that are based on looking at ourselves in the mirror, but they're not always like that. So anyways, that's just sort of an example of how I try to take stuff that's philosophical or scientific and translate that into just a way that I think is an interesting way to think about things that we don't often acknowledge. It sounds like we're nerdy, but we're actually very smooth.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Just definitely, just walk in there, take over the room with the absolute charm and complete lack of dorkiness.
Yeah.
That is how that works.
So I was diagnosed with leukemia. I'm okay now, but I did go through chemotherapy, and it was very traumatizing. And I think, I had like leukocytoplastic vasculitis, leukemic encephalitis, which are very rare complications of this specific type of leukemia that I had. But like I was on chemotherapy, and it was very interesting to me. Leukemia cells are immortal. Like if you put normal human cells in a petri dish, they'll expand and regenerate and grow, and then they'll stop and die off, right? They age and they undergo senescence and apoptosis, and then they die. And leukemia cells aren't like that, they're immortal. So it was interesting to me that a cell that was part of my cell line, that was part of my body, had decided that it wanted to be immortal. And so I achieved immortality on a cellular level. So it changed my way of thinking about my body, and it changed my perspective on life. And
like Helen is truly immortal, right? The cancer cell line.
oh yeah.
There's a line of cancer cells that are all sort of descended from one person called Helen, I think. And we use them a lot for experiments, but those cells don't age, so we just keep regrowing them and then running more drugs against them and just regrowing them. So she has achieved, everlasting life in some very limited sense.
And there's a sarcoma in dogs that's a sexually transmitted disease.
Oh, that's like the Tasmanian devil thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a cell line that's been around for 30,000 years.
Yeah.
But then again, has it really? Because like there's different tumors that are forming, they're different cells, they have mutations, and so their genetic makeup drifts over times. Anyways, yeah, I think that really changed my perspective on how I feel about my life being transient. I think we all know that we're here for a limited time, and we're very transient beings existing in a universe that is cosmologically, in both time and space, way more infinite than we can even imagine. So we think of ourselves, we know sort of on a logical level that we're infinitesimally tiny flickers that just pop in and out of existence. And it was just it sort of made me think about that in a way that wasn't just sort of logical and intellectual, but more emotional. Became a U.S. citizen on the 4th of July. Yeah, so so sorry for breaking things. You guys were doing fine.
Until you came along.
Then I became a citizen, and now you're all screwed, so I apologize. I think it was my fault. But anyways, I feel like as musicians, we can't help but resonate at least some of the emotions that people have about what's going on politically. And I think that's something that I embrace, and I think it's something we try to. We played at we played at a couple of Bernie Sanders rallies, and that was really enriching. And we would love for our music to be more involved in activist causes. We've played at a bunch of events that are political. We did a fundraiser for the Gender Justice League that had a show. I think the world needs the healing power of music, and it's okay to say, we're going to be mellow, and we're going to try and all come together and unite people through music, without losing our sense of, we have to all come together, but there has to be a lot of rage and indignation. It shouldn't be a peaceful coming together, and everything's mellow and we're all going to be content. I think we still need music for healing, but we also, but that shouldn't mute the rage and the indignation that we feel with what's going on, because it's terrible and shameful, and the way that we're splintering as a civilization, as a culture, is terrible, and we're losing our insight into each other's true natures as spiritual beings. I think that's the worst thing about some of the political changes that have happened.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the viewpoint you have is that music is sort of a tool that can be used to bring out or channel emotions in a certain sense. And I can definitely appreciate that, and I think I agree halfway. But the other half of me views political music almost as a contamination of the art form, right? It's like it wasn't really supposed to be about politics or power struggles necessarily, right? Like, shouldn't it be like this pure thing that exists sort of outside that can be appreciated on its own? I don't know that that's actually true, but there's definitely a part of me that's like, get this out of here.
It's like we don't write songs that are like, yes, on Proposition 152.
Of course. Yeah.
You should go vote for that, definitely. Like, we don't do a lot of that, but I think, I think there's a lot of identity and empowerment that's wrapped up in that,
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But just as an example, right, like, I would say that politics is a contaminant in science. Like, you don't really want politics in there, it should just sort of stay out. You can't, obviously, because science is made of people and politics is people, but yeah, I think that's a different way of thinking about it, potentially.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. There is truth that should be apolitical.
Yeah.
Though I may travel far, I will never be gone. Always be mine. You will always be mine. You will always